Hi everyone, how are you doing? This is Dominic, and today my groupmates and I will talk about the last but not least topic, which is the American literature during the contemporary period. So let's get started. As usual, we will be talking about some points to discuss, and these are historical background, famous writers and their works, poetry and novel, and drama and short story. Over the past days, we have learned about some literary movements of the American literature. But before anything else, let us define first what is a literary movement. A literary movement is a general term for pieces of literature by different authors, usually over the same time period, who share a similar impetus for writing in some ways. Usually, these authors are considered part of a movement because they have similar ideas about something. Please realize that some scholars are continually debating the dates and even the titles of the literary movements. The answers to these questions are not cut and dry. Sometimes a literary movement is simply created to counter another. For example, the beautiful nature-driven philosophy of transcendentalists like Thoreau, who wrote the very philosophical work about simplicity and solitude called Walden, was countered by destruction of nature found in the anti-transcendentalists like Melville, such as in his famous novel Moby Dick. Even though the dates and titles are debated, they do have to congeal with the same general time in history. Because of this, the literary movement of a time period is often influenced by the historical happenings, even politics of a time. So I have a couple of questions here to better us understand the meaning of contemporary. So what's the meaning of contemporary? According to my research, it is marked by characteristics of the present period, modern, current, contemporary American literature. It is happening or existing, living, or coming into being during the same period of time. Another is, what is the difference between contemporary and modern literature? The key difference between modern and contemporary literature is their time period. Modern literature refers to the literature dating from the late 19th century to 1960s, while the contemporary literature refers to the literature dating from the Second World War to the present. The term contemporary literature usually applies to anything that is written after World War II. Next is, what are the examples of contemporary literature? Some literary literature are Red Russia by Tanya Thompson, The Kite Runner, paperback, Life of Pi, The Road, The Handmaid's Tale, A Thousand Splendid Suns, Never Let Me Go, and The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time. Beginning in the 1940s, America was in the business of peacemaking. After playing a major role in the World War II, America helped to establish the United Nations. Being the biggest power in the world after World War II, many countries looked at America as a symbol of peace and freedom. The peace did not last long because soon after World War II, America entered a Cold War against the Soviet Union in 1950. Along with the war against the USSR, the United States also struggled with the growing fear of communism. Americans still had a feeling of confusion after the Second World War. They were not totally sure what to do after the devastation of war. Similar to realism naturalism in a sense, Many people lost faith in the general kindness of humanity. On the other hand, there were many Americans who were proud of their country following World War II. This mix of nationalism and skepticism is what defined the contemporary period, as authors attempted to go against the times. After World War II, the United States was once again a world power. Yet, Americans were left a combination of nationalism and skepticism. Authors such as Arthur Miller, J.D. Salinger, and Harper Lee used their literary brilliance to address pressing issues at the time and instill a sense of goodness in Americans once again. American literature does not easily lend itself to classification by time period. Given the size of the United States and its varied population, contemporary period is among the several literary movements happening after the other literary movements. After World War II, American literature has become broad and varied in terms of theme, mode, and purpose. Currently, there is a little consensus as to how to go about classifying the last 80 years into periods of movements. More time must pass, perhaps, before scholars can make these determinations. This period includes an abundance of important American literary figures spanning from World War II into the new millennium. These writers include, but not limited to, Eudora Welty, John Updike, Kurt Vonnegut, Sylvia Plath, Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams, Ralph Ellison, Gwendolyn Brooks, Zora Neale Hurston, Alice Walker, Toni Morrison, and Maya Angelou. During the 1950s, a vigorous anti-establishment and anti-traditional literary movement emerged. The main writers of this movement were Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, are called beat writers. Much writing of the 1960s and 70s, referred to as counterculture writing, continued the literary ideals of the beat movement, but in a more extreme and favored manner. Currently, the contemporary American literary scene is crowded and varied. With the passage of time, the contemporary period may be reorganized and/or expanded. So why is contemporary literature important? Modern novels and poems offer different opportunities to uncover the theme, plot, and climax of literary works. By adding more modern literature that has more relevance to students' past, present, and future than a Greek tragedy, students can better form their own relationships with what they have to read. So that ends my report. Thank you so much for watching or listening. I hope that you have learned something about my video report. And at this juncture, I may now give to you the floor to Ms. Karen Torrijos.